I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this crazy story in Minnesota about how a transgender pitcher basically shut out the former state champions. I had a video that's going viral on TikTok, and I saw people reposting it other places as well. And it was a response to a video with Scott Jennings, which I'm going to try to play his clip too. But someone left a comment about this particular event, and I didn't know about it. I heard about, different stories like in California and other places where you have males who are playing against females and, going to state championships and winning state titles and things like that. But I did not hear about the one in Minnesota, and I don't know. I read it last night. They told me about it and I read the story, and I was so angry about it. I was so angry, and just everybody going along with it, knowing how unfair it is to girls. Like Gavin Newsom in California, a couple months ago, we played a clip. He was with Charlie Kirk, and he mentioned, like, he admitted that he knew, like, it's inherently very unfair what they're doing to women, and they don't care. Or they act like they care because maybe he wants to run for president or whatever. So he's trying to make it seem like he's sensible and admits that it's unfair, but what is he doing in his state? What are Democrats doing? And then I saw there's one person who left a comment early this morning, and they're like, there's other things we could be worrying about in our country. After they made such a stink, they made this such an issue, and then people fight back, and they're like, oh, why do you even care? Like, this doesn't matter. After you wanted to harass people over pronouns and dead naming and claim that if you didn't go along with this stuff, the people are going to unalive themselves, and people like Matt Walsh are contributing to a genocide because they don't use the proper language and they make people sad, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. It's just a bunch of nonsense. So I want to talk about that, and also there's some conversations that are going on, at least on the news, with some different Democratic officials about some of the anti-Semitism that's going around, and the rhetoric on the left and the violence on the left, because for some reason, which obviously political reasons, they keep trying to pin a lot of there's violent people on the right, or the right can do crazy stuff. I mean, January 6th was kind of like a fluke or whatever, but it obviously seemed like a setup. Sorry if you went there, but I spotted that a mile away. But we can name many things that have been going on in the left that folks want to ignore. And unfortunately, there are people literally being murdered. So I'm glad that some people are willing to have some deeper conversations about this stuff. But man, you waited a bit late for all this stuff, I must say. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blackteennews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost a stream, run my site, all the good stuff, etc. So yeah, if you can't support, thank you. I do also have different merchandise that you guys can check out and get at the website, different t-shirts and different mugs. And I've got like the My Money, My Business t-shirt, which I made that because of people are like, it's not your business that people have abortions. I'm like, do they involve taxpayer dollars? Like, that's at least like some of my concern, right? But could apply to many different things. But you guys can check out some of the goodies on the site. You guys can also check out some of my books that I've written. I have 8 is it 17? It's 18 altogether. Soon to be 19 once I get my picture book all together, and I'll let you guys know when that's finished. There's a link in the description that can take you to an Amazon page where you guys can check out some of my books, like my book, Of Course God is Blatantly Against Abortion, and most of my books, though, are like fiction books. So go check out some of my stuff if you can. I'd appreciate it, please, and thank you. So it is warm today. I don't know where you guys are at, but it's warm today. I think it's supposed to get up to like 80. But I did not turn up the air I have in this house. It's not like terrible, but I am sweating for sure. But it's it's nice. I think maybe this time last year heat wave. Um anyway, let me show you guys this clip from CNN. I mentioned it yesterday that there was another clip that was on that woman Abby's show on CNN, and Scott Jennings posted this. Now there it is clipped because he put it on his page, so it's clipped obviously to highlight him and make him look good. But I want to show some of the things that this other commentator is saying. So the video that went viral, or it's going viral, that I made, is just like a snippet of her response, and I'll just explain it. I'm gonna play the video of my response. Someone reposted it on Twitter, and I don't know where else people repost stuff. I wish people would just kind of at least tag you when they repost your stuff. I wouldn't know, except someone saw my watermark when they download it, and then they found me on X, and they said, "Hey, I really like what you do." And I, out of curiosity, went to their page, and I saw that they reposted the video of someone reposting my video, again, not mentioning that I made it or whatever, but at least I guess my watermark is there. But I guess that's just the way of the internet. A lot of people repost people's stuff, and they have bigger followings, and so they get the clicks and the views and the benefits and the payouts compared to other stuff. I have decent sized following in other places, but my X account is been very stagnant. And I don't have a check mark, because the last time I paid for my check mark, Elon took my money but did not give me my check mark, and I don't know why. And I don't know how many $8 I have to lose until they give me the check mark. So I just haven't tried it again. But anyway, here is the video that Scott Jennings posted on his Twitter that I want to draw attention to. So they're talking about this issue because it's been in the news with the AB Hernandez, who is a male playing in female sports and competed and won some competitions the other day. And Trump threatened to pull funds from California because they're not protecting women's sports and adhering to Title IX. And they tried to make some changes that they would, have an extra spot and do an extra medal if there was a trans person competing, so women wouldn't miss out. But he's still taking people's spots, and what if he breaks a record? And it's just not appropriate. It's just not appropriate. So and I'll get to that too. I got thoughts on a lot of those things, but let me at least play this clip that Scott posted.
This hasn't been studied enough or talked about enough for us to make a real full opinion. I do agree girls' sports are for girls.
You said this hasn't been studied enough to know that, look, we've got millions of years of study. Men and women are different, and that's why it's unfair to put boys in girls' sports. We don't need to have any more biological studies. It is fundamentally unfair.
But do you see, genuinely curious, any accommodations that are reasonable? You have a 16-year-old who wants to participate in sports. In your mind, is there any way that can happen that is fair?
Of course. Have the people participate with their own biological sex. Boys in boys sports, girls in girls sports. It's worked for a very long time in this country.
But it's not that simple anymore, Scott. That's where we are. So what do you do when it's not
80% of the country?
But it's not that anymore. So what do you do with the 20%? Do we ignore them?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's an 80-20 issue.
Scott,
And
everybody's
and
ignoring
you-
at the end of the
and
day.
you just said it was a minuscule number.
It's
If
a
it's minuscule,
minuscule
why can't
number. It's
why
a
do we have to
minuscule number.
upend
We don't have to. The reason why
millions
I
of
said it
people
was
for
a
a
minuscule
handful?
number, Scott, was because I don't think it's fair that you're scaring people at home thinking that boys are trying to compete in girls'
They
sport
are.
by the droves and that this is going to
They
take
are.
over and you were scaring people at home. It's just not
But in
happening,
high,
Scott.
but there's this
It's
is the
not
biggest.
happening
This
and
is
you're
like the most
exaggerating.
competitive track meet
Christine,
in the
can I
country.
ask?
So Scott made a good point. There about, you say it's a minuscule number. So if it's a minuscule number, why do we have to upend everything? And she didn't really answer that question, at least not in that snippet that he posted, but she went on to say, I'm just pointing out that it's minuscule because you guys are acting like sports about to be upended by all these trans players, and that's just not happening. Now, my response to this that went viral was, okay, I did mention the thing about the why should so many people have to rearrange their lives for this small number. That's a big thing. But I said one is too many. Even if it's one trans identifying male, and which Tim for short, and Tiff would be a trans identifying female. But even if it's one Tim, right? And I think we should start using that language more. It's like the trans woman, trans man thing. It is a trans identifying male, trans identifying female. Even if it was one, that's just not one on one that he's competing against. It's a league. There's, I don't know, is there a spot on the team a girl didn't make because you took that spot? Did you take a spot on that podium? They made accommodations in this particular race. They don't always, but he still shouldn't be there in the first place. And it's not just the people that day. What about other times he's had to compete against other girls who didn't get to make it as far as they did, and also inflating like different stats of your teams, which we will get to with this other story in Minnesota. So there's a lot of victims, even if it's just one person, but it's not just one person. So back to the question of, if it's minuscule, why do so many women have to suffer through this to accommodate these people? I think, because they're like, well, what should we do? Scott was right. They should compete in the categories of their own sex. Sports is very physical. And the reason why I mentioned this the other day, why aren't there women in the NFL or the NBA? It's not because they're not allowed. It's because they physically can't compete. They cannot raise to that level. They cannot raise to that professional level. They can raise to a professional level in their own leagues, but not in the males sports. They just can't. We know that men and women are just biologically different. Brings me no pleasure to say that. It's just the truth. So we have things like Title IX that are supposed to be in place to protect women's opportunities. And they're ignoring this. So let me put it this way. If all of the clickbait headlines, the nagging right-wing commentators, the livid parents, and all of the girls who have to suffer in silence, if all of those people don't change the fact that you're a trans woman, do you know what else won't change the fact that you're a trans woman? Playing on the boys' team. Why would that change who you are and who you believe yourself to be if you just played on the boys' team? Because it's not about necessarily how you feel. It's about how you can impose your will on others. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. It's about being cruel to everyone else. And maybe you don't think that deeply about it, but it is so unfair. And as I already stated, there's plenty of people like Gavin Newsom who know it's unfair. I think those people on CNN, those commentators, or we watched Breonna Keller's video yesterday, they know it's unfair. They know it's unfair. They're old enough to know better. I don't think they are that entirely indoctrinated. They may be afraid to admit the truth. They may be socially engineered to speak a certain way. But deep within their hearts, not even just deep within their hearts, within the shallow pools of their mind, I'm certain that they know that this is inherently unfair. I think also when you start injecting yourselves with those hormones and other stuff, you know, you should basically be done anyway. I mean, if you were like, everybody needs to play in their own sports, I still don't want a trans man or trans identifying female who's been taking testosterone or whatever to play with the girls. That's not fair. So if you make a decision, I think your parents need to sit you down. If you have some kind of gender dysphoria, I really don't think we should be experimenting on our minors like this. But set that aside. If someone has, an issue in their mind and they think that they're born in the wrong body or whatever, they have dysphoria and the boy believes he's a girl or whatever, parents need to sit them down and say, okay, this is how you internally feel about yourself. If you try to flip that out, what you feel inside, if you flip it out on the outside, everyone will be able to see that this is your issue. But the world is under no obligation to share that issue with you. You cannot burden them with your illness. They can be compassionate towards you, but you cannot force them to comply. And it's cruel what they're doing to these girls. And I don't believe that they don't know that either. I don't believe these dudes are practically grown. I don't believe that they don't know that either. I don't. But when you have that kind of control and you can make yourself feel superior, special, and like the victim at the same time, probably got all kind of endorphins or whatever rushing in your brain. Getting you just high off of life, knowing that you're causing misery for so many people and you're winning. And you're winning. So let me tell you guys a story, because this story upset me so bad yesterday. Again, somebody had left a comment because folks are, debating. Most people agreed with my point of view. But there's some people, I got called a bigot this morning or late last night or whatever. And some people are really trying to stand up for, the trans people, and they're shifting the goalposts. They're like, okay, well, if they belong in their own sports, what about the bathrooms? And they asked about the bathrooms so they could ask about TIFs, trans identifying females, and if they should be forced to use women's bathrooms. And I would pose the question, do you believe that men and women have the same security concerns? And they wouldn't answer the question. They're like, answer my question first. I'm like, this is a very important part of my answer, the response that you're going to give. And they never answered that particular question from me, but someone else answered the question in the comments. And I already did like 2 video responses to this person, so I wasn't too keen on doing another one. But it was a guy, and he said, a trans man, which is a trans identifying female, can come into my bathroom. I'm going to be safe. I can take care of myself. But I'm concerned about my daughter going into the bathroom and a trans identifying male being there. So I can deal with it. And essentially, that's my answer. I guess we'll have to ask the guys and see how they feel about it. But no one is making a TIFF have to use the female bathroom. They can, I don't know, still go, if the men allow it, they can still go to the men's bathroom. They can find a private single sex stall, a unisex stall. They can hold it till they get home. I don't know, but they don't have to use a female bathroom. And I guess if they end up doing that, we will have a moment of social confusion that is unfortunately designed by their own hand. And I guess we'll get through it. But I mean, that's my answer to that question. Because men and women do have different security concerns. It brings me no peace. I mean, not necessarily no peace, but no joy. Again, to admit that, I would like it if women could slay and fight and run and hunt and do all these things as good as men can, but we just aren't built that way. It's not what God intended. There's a comment here. Notice there isn't a flood of trans men trying to compete in men's sports. I wonder why. And that is interesting. There are cases of it, but it's not as much as obviously as you hear in reverse. Like there was a trans identifying female who was swimming like around the same time as like Leah Thomas, but those stories are so rare compared to the boys competing with the girls. And I think that reason is obvious. But you would think, I don't know off the top of my head the numbers, but the transgender ideology and the movement is more prevalent in young females. They're more susceptible to it. And then they do it in friends groups, you tend to find, because women kind of feel each other's pain. They're more like empathetic than guys. Not that I'm saying that men can't be empathetic, but men and women are different. So that's something that Abigail Schreier wrote in her book Irreversible Damage. So I see definitely a lot of young girls, unfortunately, who kind of cluster together and then they decide that they're non-binary or trans or whatever. But you don't see a lot of those people competing in different sports. You just don't, gunning to take male titles. Doesn't happen. How many stories of trans men who are stealing state championships from biological boys? It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, let's talk about this Minnesota story. Minnesota high school defends trans softball pitcher's playoff dominance amid lawsuit. Champlain Park High School in Minnesota. Come on. Okay, a high school softball team in Minnesota is deep in the state playoffs and the political news cycle thanks to both its dominant transgender pitcher. Champlain Park High School in Minnesota defeated the defending state champions, Rogers High School, in the sectional final on Thursday by a score of 1-0. The trans pitcher threw 14 shutout innings, bringing the athlete's season era down to 0.88. The anonymous players who claim to have the pitcher, filed a lawsuit against the state on May 20th for allowing the athlete to compete against female players. The situation has prompted national scrutiny among ongoing political divide over biological males in girls and women's sports. I played softball before. I mean, on a team. It wasn't like a school team. It was, I don't know what kind of like community league or whatever it was, but I think it was like a bunch of different churches. It wasn't my church. But I was in an undefeated team because our pitcher was really good. I mean, our team was good. I was decent at it. But I haven't played baseball in a long time. But she was a top tier. She was really good. I just the idea of them having a pitcher who was a boy pitching, just striking out all these girls, or and them just shutting them out, not even being able to score a single point. That just infuriated me so much last night. Thinking about their frustration and the fact that they were the former state champions. And here comes a boy. Here comes a boy. And of course, I don't know how all his teammates feel about it, but they are obviously benefiting from having a boy on the team. Champlain Park School District provided a statement to Fox News Digital defending the decision to allow the athlete to compete on the softball team throughout the entire season. As the Rebels advance to the state tournament, it is important to note that all the student athletes participating from the Champlain Park softball team are eligible to compete in compliance with Minnesota State High School League rules and applicable state law. Due to data privacy laws, the district is not able to provide public comment regarding such a specific student athlete. A statement from Anaka Hennepin School District stated, in addition, the district is named in an active lawsuit which limits the information that can be shared. The pitcher will now lead Champlain Park into the state tournament next week for the first time in program history. So when Leah Thomas was swimming, everybody told they told the teammates, like, this is happening, you got to get on board with it. And why wouldn't they be for it? Besides the fact that maybe they didn't want to push him out and be called bigots, maybe they're ideologically aligned with it, and they just saw the poor girls who were upset about it as being the villains and he was just the victim. Or maybe there's also the fact that they get a benefit from the fact that he was doing really well and beating other girls. But there's a benefit to it. You know? You got sometimes in sports and just like, oh gosh, we got this advantage. We got this freaking nature player that's really, really good. They have a situation where they have someone who's just built different for success. The pitcher will now, I already read that. The lawsuit against Minnesota was filed by the religious law firm Alliance Defending Freedom. Glad they're on the case. The defendants are Attorney General Keith Ellison, the Minnesota State High School League Executive Director Eric Martins, Minnesota Department of Human Rights Commissioner Rebecca Lucero, and Minnesota Commissioner in Education Willie Jett. Keith Ellison, man. Keith Ellison is a bad dude. I've been mentioning Keith Ellison the past couple days because he was the one who had was holding up the Antifa book. I'm gonna read the rest of this. Try to read the rest of this on my phone because I'm sorry, it's kind of glitching and kind of weird with the screen share for some reason. But I'm not surprised. I mean, he is AG, so of course he'd probably be defending that story, but it's just I'd be so mad. I can't imagine being a parent in that situation, and I can't imagine being a player in that situation and losing that kind of way. Minnesota is failing its female athletes. The state is putting the rights of the males ahead of the females, telling girls their hard work may never be enough to win and that they don't deserve fairness and safety. Alliance Defending Freedom legal counsel Suzanne Beecher told Fox News Digital, by sacrificing protection for female athletes, Minnesota fails to offer girls equal treatment and opportunity, violating Title IX's provisions. Our client, Female Athletes United, is right to stand up for its members by challenging the state's discriminatory policy and advocate for true equality in sports. Ellison's office has responded to the lawsuit in a statement to Fox News Digital. In addition to getting exercise and fun of competition, playing sports comes with so many benefits for young people. You build friendships that can last a lifetime. You learn how to work as part of a team, and you get to feel like you belong. The statement read, I believe it is wrong to single out one group of students who already face higher levels of bullying and harassment and tell these kids they cannot be on the team because of who they are. I will continue to defend the rights of all students to play sports with their friends and peers. Ellison is also suing President Donald Trump and the Department of Justice to ensure transgender athletes can continue participating in girls' sports in the state. Okay. Ellison, he's a very radical guy, sure. Not surprised in the least bit that this is what his office is putting out. But again, they know better. They know better. And if they want to play, there's nothing stopping this player, maybe his own ability, I don't know, from playing with males. This is cruel. This is cruel. After Trump signed the Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports Executive Order, the Minnesota State High School League announced it would defy federal law by allowing transgender athletes to continue playing women's sports. Ellison then claimed at a press conference on April 22nd that he received a notice from the Department of Justice threatening legal action if the state did not follow executive order. So the AG decided to sue first. The White House later responded to the lawsuit, condemning Ellison for taking legal action to enable trans inclusion. Why would a grown man sue the Trump administration to allow other biological males to participate in women's sports? This is creepy. An anti-woman White House spokesperson Harrison Fields told Fox News Digital. Yeah, it is weird and creepy. Minnesota state legislature failed to pass the Preserving Girls Sports Act in early March, which would have stated that only female students may participate in an elementary or secondary school level athletic team or sport that an educational institution has restricted to women and girls. This is cruel, man. I just keep thinking about being in that position. I still get annoyed watching the end of Harry Potter, like the first one. When Team Slytherin, they had clearly had most of the enough points to win the House Cup. If you're unfamiliar with Harry Potter, you've never seen it, at the end of the book or movie, I don't know how I'd assume it's like that in the book. I've never read a Harry Potter book, but I've seen all the films, all the, I think the 8 or 7 of the original. I never saw the Fantastical Beasts once, but each house, there's 4 houses, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, and Gryffindor, and they all accumulated points throughout the year, or they get points deducted, and whoever wins at the end of the year, has the most points, wins the House Cup. And I don't know what all you get if you win the House Cup. I don't remember, but Slytherin, they're like the bad house full of bad guys and stuff. You don't necessarily have to be evil if you were a Slytherin, but a lot of the bad guys are from Slytherin. And at the end, they had the most points, and they would snitch on kids like the Gryffindor kids, which was Harry Potter and Hermione and them, because they'd be sneaking out late or whatever, and they'd just be snitching, and so they would get rewarded, and the other kids would get deducted or whatever. And at the end, Dumbledore, who obviously favored Harry Potter for various reasons, just started whipping out points to Ron and Hermione and Harry. And granted, they defeated nose guy, or no nose guy, gosh, what's his Voldemort, one of his cohorts. And so then he just started dishing out different points for them. And then they're tied with Slytherin. And then and then they're like, okay, well, we're gonna give 5 points to Neville because he tried to stop his friends from going out or whatever, and he stood up to his friends. And then they won the House Cup. And everyone's like, oh yes, yay, that's so great. But the thing that upsets me is thinking about, like, these kids thought they won and you just snatched it from their hands. And I can understand you're looking from the perspective of these kids who are supposed to be the heroes, but did they not behave throughout the years and get the points? So and I just know that I would have been in the Slytherin house. I just know that I would have been there. So so if something like that bothers me, I just can't imagine being on a sports team and wanting to win, knowing that you're the reigning champions. You want to go back to defend the state championship. And the team just whips out someone surging with testosterone, and he just totally disallows any of the girls from getting any points. I would be so angry. And as a parent, I would just be livid, man. I wouldn't stand for it. I can tell you that. I absolutely would not stand for it. But Keith Ellison and all these people, all these activists are like, oh, they're picking on the marginalized, they're picking on this group. How can you ignore that team? How can you ignore those young women? How is that fair to them? Why do they mean nothing? And why does this boy, who could play with the boys, mean more than them? What's the answer to that question? I'm not hearing the answer to that question. Why is he more important than all these other girls? So, it just ticks me off. It just really ticks me off. Anyway, let's move on. Yesterday in the show, I mentioned that Jamie Raskin brought up the fact after the terrorist attack in Colorado, Jamie Raskin brought up the need for gun control, and I'm like, I would totally want a gun to shoot someone who's trying to set me on fire. I don't think it's just me, but I'd really prefer to be able to not headshot them. You need a bigger target than headshot, but I would like to just take him out some kind of other way. So he did try to do a background check. Well, he tried to purchase a firearm. The man who committed the terror attack, but he wasn't able to get it because he wasn't a citizen. So he tried, and the system worked, because we do have background checks. I know a lot of people who are anti-gun are like, we need more background checks. We have background checks. Why don't you think we have background checks? We have background checks. Even if you order a gun online, there are background checks. Even if you go to a gun show, there are background checks. There are background checks. So the system worked here. And I saw that someone had left a comment about it online too. And so I just wanted to point that out. But because he couldn't get the firearm, he made the Molotov cocktails. So I mentioned yesterday in my rant about Jamie Raskin that if people cannot get guns, they will find other ways to hurt you. And I talked about in Europe, they have the knife problem and they were throwing acid on people. And I talked about how people were driving cars into people. Years ago, I mean, we talk a lot about like mass shootings and them going to schools and doing stuff like that. They're people who had bombs before, like, I think around the time when I was a kid, that was a concern going on. So people could just go back to things like that. People who are unwell will find a way to cause harm. We should still try to stop those people from getting access to firearms. And if you see something, you better say something. Sure. But the solution is also not to disarm people who can save themselves. I don't want to be, defenseless in this crazy world. That's just getting crazier. Speaking of the crazy world, Jake Tapper did ask the mayor of Boulder, Colorado about some of the Democrat rhetoric and the far left violence going on, which I don't know. I wonder if this caused him pain to even mention the left, because he sure did still mention the right. But let's watch this clip.
This is the third such anti-Semitic act of terror that we've seen in the United States in recent months. We saw the attempted murder of not only the governor of Pennsylvania, but his entire family through arson. We saw the murders carried out outside the Jewish Museum in DC. We've seen this horrific attack in Boulder. All three of the alleged perpetrators in these incidents have claimed that they were doing this for Palestine. All three thought that the Jewish Americans that were being targeted, or I guess Israelis in the DC case, that were being targeted, that it was okay to murder them to protect the Palestinian people. And all three of them from the quote unquote left. And I just wonder, we've seen anti-Semitism on the right, we've seen anti-Semitism on the left. It's obviously a real problem on the left right now. Do you think the Democratic Party needs to be doing more to condemn anti-Semitism and to make?
Okay, so before I let the mayor speak here, I just want to point out, when they talk about anti-Semitism on the right, which there is anti-Semitism on the right, and bad actors that I talk about and pointed out, people who used to be right commentators and I think have lost the plot, like Candace Owens and so on, and Nick Fuentes has uplifted Hitler and all kinds of stuff, and there's, I don't know, maybe it's my algorithm or somehow, some way, but there's some really toxic people who don't like Jews on X. And I think that's the kind of worst spot that I see online, at least from the right side of the aisle. But when the media focuses on this stuff and they're like, oh, there's anti-Semitism on the right, they're usually talking about, I don't know, Elon Musk doing "My Heart Goes Out to You," that thing. And I know that was up for debate. Some people who even follow me were just like, that was a salute or whatever. Which, by the way, people were pointing out that Cory Booker did like the same thing. Macron did the same thing too, by the way. But I think the Cory Booker is a closer comparison. I don't have one pulled up, but people on the right were talking about it so much that it did kind of break, into mainstream news, at least the commentary from the right talking about Cory Booker, doing the "My Heart Goes Out to You," where Elon threw his heart out to people. So his was like more aggressive, but it is like touch your heart, throw it out to the crowd or hand it out to the crowd. That's the sentiment. But there was all this commentary and accusations, and you know, the people on the left were like, if what Elon did was there was nothing wrong with it, go ahead and do it yourself. And some people on TikTok went ahead and did it. But I'm like, okay, you clearly want to smear people, so they can go ahead and do it to prove that Elon did nothing wrong. But if your intention is to smear them as an anti-Semite, like, I would just be careful about meeting your demands anyway. But there was nonstop coverage about that stuff for a while. Now think about that compared to just some of this other stuff that's gone on where there's been real violence. Do you feel like the coverage of the real violence is appropriate given how much time Elon Musk got for My Heart Goes Out to You? Do you think the news is covering all this stuff appropriately? I don't think so. I don't think so. And by the way, the news is like guilty of fueling the hostility from a lot of these wackadoodles, because they'll report things going on with the Israel-Gaza war, and they'll take what Hamas said at face value right away, write a story about it, and then have to do corrections if they even really bother with the corrections, and they'll spread just misinformation everywhere. And that's what the folks will run with, and they'll use it as justification for, hey, the genocide is happening here and so on. Like, war is hard enough, war is bad enough, war is ugly enough, but you could at least, and you don't always report everything accurately, and you want to get things out fast, and you want to in a timely manner and stuff. But when the terrorists use the sentiments of the people as a tool to keep themselves in power, like they bank on tragedies happening, their civilians dying, because they want the world to look at Israel like the bad guys, and the more they harp on them, the more likely Israel is to just give up, and the more likely they can stay in power and then go ahead and commit more atrocities, including to their own people. So the media, they're not good guys in this. They're not good guys in this at all. But let's go ahead and listen to his response.
Make it clear that violence against Jews is not acceptable, because there does seem to be an Overton window shifting where this kind of thing is acceptable. The Democratic Socialists of America, there was a story in the Free Press last week about how there was an internal debate in the DSA about whether killing those 2 Israelis was okay.
No, I mean, violence like this is never acceptable, and it's certainly not acceptable here in Boulder, nor was it in Pennsylvania or in DC. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to condemn this kind of hate and this kind of needless violence. You can have your political differences. It's fair to have a debate and talk passionately about how you think things should be different. But this kind of terror attack, like we saw yesterday in Boulder, there's nothing to justify that. And I think it's important for all of us who are in elected office, who are public figures, to make it clear that anti-Semitism is unacceptable in our country. It's unacceptable in our community, and we need to get that message out there loud and clear, because the attacks are only ratcheting up. It's completely unacceptable.
So I don't think people get the gist that it's unacceptable, and I don't think that's the sort of message that the Democrat power or different institutions have put out there. I saw a story earlier today about some of the students that are expressing anti-Semitism on campus and stuff got rewarded with different fellowships or scholarships or opportunities and whatever. And people will get arrested, maybe let go with no serious sort of repercussions. And it just breeds for more insanity when people know that they can get away with this kind of stuff. But it's nice to see Tapper and some people bring this stuff up in the media and people have these conversations. But I don't know, it just seems a little late considering all the stuff that's been bubbling up and over time. And I'm not saying they haven't covered the college campus stuff and talked about it, but really, really wanting to hold the Democrat Party accountable to talk to their side and talk to the left and try to tone the stuff down. I No, like, just imagine if it was the right. There'd be so much. There is so much condemnation and nonstop coverage and lectures when it's not even things that are comparable on the right, but they'll still harp on nonstop. We don't see that from the mainstream media going after the left or trying to keep them accountable. And a good example, just go back to 2020. We all lived through it. There were riots happening across the country with the BLM stuff. A black person dead, protest immediately. One time BLM folks showed up to a protest, and I'm not saying this one was necessarily violent, but they showed up to a protest and they found out the person was white and they all just left. there there was stuff going on across the country and people died during those riots, and there was arson and there was looting and all kinds of things, and the media just really didn't want to cover it, and they were calling it peaceful protest. And there was the Chiron on CNN where there was a black guy, black news anchor, and there's fire behind him, and it's like fiery but mostly peaceful protest. It was really wild how they tried to cover up stuff. Wow. I mean, I don't know what the world was like for people who weren't chronically online and seeing, different I don't know, phone videos and so on, and could only go by what was being played on the news. But the Democrats didn't want to really sound the alarm until like way late in the game. And I remember Don Lemon complaining. He's like, Democrats have to do something because it's showing up in the polling. Well, okay, well, you guys didn't care about that before. I think Chris Cuomo said, show me where in the Constitution where protests are supposed to be peaceful and quiet or something. And it's like, it says it right there, like in the text, that they are supposed to be peaceful. So what are you guys encouraging? What were they encouraging? So on one hand, they wanted to pretend like it was mostly peaceful, but at the same time, they kind of wanted to justify people's rageful actions. And then all of a sudden, they said it was showing up in polling, and they decided to flip the script a bit and make a plea to the Democrats to get these people, in line. But they didn't really want to do that because it was a political tool at the time. And the more chaos that happened, the worse it looked on Donald Trump. And Donald Trump didn't want to institute martial law or anything like that. He would, try to protect federal, property where people would do crazy stuff on there. But he kept saying, and he even said at the debate, like, we can help you. We can help, send these folks to your state, but you have to ask. We can't just go there. The governors, you can just ask, but you do have to ask. And the Democrats, they didn't want to ask because, again, the chaos made him look bad. And ultimately, that was not a successful election for Trump for various reasons. I think he made some mistakes. And I thought he was making some mistakes in real time. So I feel like I can talk about this, and it's not just hindsight, but they've been quiet about a lot of the stuff. I saw a snippet on CNN the other night, and they were the anchors were acting like AOC and Ilhan Omar haven't promoted anti-Semitism or said things that were anti-Semitic, and the commentators were just like floored. I'm like, Ilhan Omar, you don't think she hasn't said things that were anti-Semitic? Like, are you serious? It's really easy to say we condemn violence, if you even mean that. if you seriously even mean that. It's really easy to say that, but can you change your behavior and encourage everyone else to get in line and to do better and to not be violent or to not spread baseless rhetoric that leads people to be insane and commit more heinous acts? Anyway, I want to show you guys, I had briefly mentioned this story yesterday. And I wasn't sure about all the details, but Michigan anti-Semite was plotting to massacre kids at Jewish daycare, tried to buy an assault weapon here. So there's an article from the New York Post claiming that. So I briefly mentioned this. I live in Michigan. I also, maybe it's a scar on this man's head, but if you've ever watched Avatar, The Last Airbender, he looks like Sparky Boom Man to me. Sparky Boom. I don't think the character had a real name. That's just what Sokka calls him, but he could he was like a huge guy, and he was like a assassin hired to kill Aang, the Avatar, and he could like firebend with his mind. He would just blow stuff up. It was combustion. But just go through this article real quick. Okay, Michigan anti-Semite plotted to massacre kids at Jewish daycare, tried to buy assault weapons to use for God's wrath. I guess according to the feds, Michigan anti-Semite was plotting to massacre kids at Jewish daycare and tried to legally buy assault weapons after hurling threats at the preschoolers. Federal prosecutors have revealed. Hassan Chalker, 35, was out on bail when he drove through the parking lot of Temple Beth El in Bloomfield Hills. Wow. Oh gosh. That is real close to home, man. I mean, I don't live in like Bloomfield, but I know where that is. That is insane. Outside of Detroit, and shouted anti-Semitic slurs and threats as parents dropped off their kids in December 2022, authorities said. He pled guilty to federal gun charges on May 28th. U.S. Attorney Jerome F. Gorgon Jr. said his attempted gun purchase was part of what authorities believe was a larger plot to follow through on his menacing threats against parents and preschoolers as they walked into a place of worship. Immediately after his anti-Semitic rant, he drove to a gun shop at his nearby hometown of Dearborn. Dearborn has a lot of Muslims, which is home to the country's highest portion of Arab Americans, and tried to buy 3 semi-automatic weapons. The Michigan man lied on the gun application, stating that he wasn't convicted of a felony and didn't have any pending felony charges, according to the Department of Justice. But he was already convicted in 2017 of felony theft. He also had a pending assault with a dangerous weapon charge. While awaiting the results of a background check during the firearm purchase, he stated it ain't a fair fight out here, and that he was going to even the score and even the playing field real soon, brothers, real soon, according to court documents. The gun store owner also overheard him say that he intended to use the weapons for God's wrath. The federal background check detected the felonies, and he was denied the purchase. The feds showed surveillance images from inside the store where he tried out a Delton AR-15 style assault rifle, a Landor Arms automatic shotgun, and a Glock pistol. Prosecutors previously said he had posted videos and statements on Instagram where he talks about buying guns. One of the posts said, "Your Jew tactics will only backfire on you. You have no place on this earth, Jew," then the swear word, "Jew mother," swear word. You can probably guess which one that one is. A storm is coming to wipe you all out of our lives, according to the prosecutors. At a court appearance after his arrest, he pulled down his pants and exposed his rear end to the judge to protest his arrest. Wow. Okay. That is very odd. He now faces up to 10 years in prison and a fine up to $250,000. That's all he gets. That's all that's happening. Y'all think this man was about to kill some kids with some guns and light on his form? And he only faces up to 10 years in prison and a fine of $250,000. That's all. That's all. Literally exposed his butt. I can show you guys some of these pictures. Hold on, I gotta switch the screen. Someone's Anna said she thinks it's only gonna get worse. I hope it's not gonna get worse. That's him exposing his butt in protest. Wild. Wild. There's pictures of him in the gun shop too. There was another story about someone who was in a gun shop. Oh, I think it was a story about an illegal alien. I can't remember which one. I think that was in a store. No, it wasn't an illegal alien. I think it was a visa holder. It was one of the guys the New York Times did like a glowing piece on, and the Trump administration revoked his visa, and everyone's like, no, he's a peaceful guy. He just wants peace in the Middle East. And he also went to a gun shop and was getting guns and was talking crazy about Jews and all kinds of different stuff. God bless, the background checks and all this people who are seeing things, saying things. I'm glad this crisis was averted and the system worked. And obviously that he wasn't dedicated enough to go get some Molotov cocktails and burn some kids up. But it's crazy. Pray for our world, guys. Please do. Anna said he's evil looking. I don't think you were here before, but I think he looks like Sparky Boom Man. If you don't know who that is, he's a villain on Avatar. And another name for it is Combustion Man. Man, I'm glad they stopped it. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the site because it does cost a stream, run the site, all that good stuff you guys can support. Very much to appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch that's available on the store as well. You guys can also check out some of the different books that I have written. I have historical fiction fantasy. I've got some nonfiction books. I got children's chapter books and picture books that, they're soon to be released and stuff too. So I encourage you guys to go ahead and check out that stuff. There's a link in the description. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, that'll take you to an Amazon page where you guys can check out some of my books and things. But you guys can also go to blacktnews.com. There's a banner at the merchant on top of the merchandise page. It'll take you to my book website as well. God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. By the way, we're a week out from like my birthday. It's just I saw that the guy was 35. I'm just like, we're the same age, bro. I'm about to be 36, but I'm like, it's just crazy the sorts of ways that people ruin their lives. It's just really crazy. Anyway, God bless you guys. I'll see you next time.